we talked in John chapter 1, and we learned that Jesus is not just a man of God, but God-man. Wow, what a big difference. Not just a man of God. We have men and women of God here. Jesus is God-man. We go on to that next slide. There we go. And then we learned that Jesus has coexisted with God the Father since the beginning. The beginning. We learned that Jesus is the Creator. We learned that Jesus is the Messiah. We learned that Jesus takes away the sins of the world. Now, if Jesus is all of these things from the beginning, coexisting with the Father, the Creator, He is somebody we can trust. He's got to be wise, He's got to be good, He's got to be intelligent and know everything. We can trust Jesus. I don't know if you saw the picture this week in Afghanistan in Kabul, as one of the Afghan women handed a little 14-month-old baby over the fence to an American soldier to try to save the life of their child. And I read how somebody said, can you imagine a woman from Afghanistan handing to her baby to a soldier from another country? How she must trust that soldier to do that. And because they have seen that the American soldier in there was not for their bad, but for their good. And so they have sacrificed, sometimes in spite of wise or not wise governments. I think we should all honor the American soldier and what they have done. But they could trust that soldier with their baby because of something they had proved to them. Jesus has sacrificed for us and shown Himself that we can trust Him. And so I hope today we'll remember to learn to trust Jesus Christ. Now let's look at more verses in John about another miracle Jesus did. So Jesus, came again to Cana in Galilee, okay? He was down in Jerusalem, talked to a guy named Nicodemus, and he's back up in his home area where he had made the water wine. And at Capernaum there was an official, some guy who's got some influence, some kind of position, some money, whose son was ill. So, of course, this guy heard that Jesus had come to Galilee, went to him and asked him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. He's got to do something for his son. So Jesus said to him, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. The official just didn't even deal with that. He said, sir, come down before my child dies. Jesus said to him, go, your son will live. And what did the man do? He believed. He believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. As he was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was recovering. So he asked him the hour when he began to get better. And he said, yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. The father knew that was the hour when Jesus had said, your son will live. And so notice this. And he himself believed, not just for the faith of his son. He now believes Jesus is not just the one that healed him. Jesus is the one. And all his household. This was the second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee. I want to talk about faith. Trust Jesus this morning. I've got several quotes because I want us to think about it. What does faith really mean? And that's hard to figure out sometimes. So let's look at some quotes about faith. Here's one from The Miracle on 34th Street. Anybody remember that old movie about Kris Kringle and Santa Claus? Faith is believing in something when common sense tells you not to. Now, what do we learn from that quote? We learn don't get your theology from movies. So that's stupid. Faith is not going against common sense. Faith is based, it is sensible. So some people got a lot of crazy ideas about faith. Here's a Sunday school kid who didn't get it right. I hope not from the teacher. Faith is believing something you know is not true. That's not what faith is either, okay? I think that's what some people, well, I know it's not true, but I believe anyhow. No. That's not what we're talking about. Faith is something that makes sense, but we can't prove it. I cannot prove to you there is a God. You cannot prove to me there is not a God. Every human being on this world has to have faith in something or another. I hope there's no God, because I don't want to stand before Him. Or yes, I believe in God. And I believe there's sense, makes sense to believe in God. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Martin Luther King. I think that is a better quote. Because you have the first step, and you may be a staircase you can't see the whole way, but it makes sense to start going up there. Sometimes, well, all the time, God doesn't show us, or me anyhow, all His plan for me. He just basically thinks, what's the next step? So a lot of times the word, how do I get guidance from God? How do I know the will of God? A lot of times the truth is God is more our guide than we get guidance. In other words, the tour guide, we go with him and he takes us around. God is our guide through life. I don't know what's going to happen down there, but God, the guide, is with me. And that's faith in trusting Him. All right, our belief in God is not blind faith, Max Lucado. And he's right, I don't believe it's blind faith. Belief is having a firm conviction something is true, not just hoping it's true. There's reasons for us to believe in Jesus Christ. There was reasons for this man to believe in Jesus Christ. All right, let's go to another one. I have learned that faith means trusting in advance what will only make sense in reverse. Now, some things I see make sense that I believe, but sometimes there are things, let's say for example, give and it shall be given you. You see that a lot better from reverse. At first you would say, why should I give? I already got it. I don't need any more given to me. I'll keep it. But when you do give, you find out that later on in reverse, yes, it is given to you. In friends, in money, in favors, in love. When you do give, it comes. So a lot of times this is true. All right, if God were small enough to be understood, He would not be big enough to be worshipped. If I can't even completely understand you guys. Do you think I can completely understand God? But that's what we think sometimes. I can't figure it out. I should be able to figure out God. No, we cannot figure out God. He has so much more knowledge and wisdom than we have. We will never be able to completely understand God. If we could, He would not be God and would not be deserving of worship. So I believe that is a great quote. Those who believe, now this is one you might think about. This is a little harder one. Those who believe, they believe in God, but without passion in the heart, without anguish of mind, without uncertainty, without doubt, and even at times without despair, believe only in the idea of God and not in God Himself. I think there's a lot of shallow belief in God. Oh yeah, I believe in God. They don't really believe in God. That never changes their life. They don't really believe in God. You remember when Jacob wrestled with the angel who turned out to be God? I think that's what a lot of us do. Sometime or another in our life, we wrestle with God. God, I don't get it. What are you doing? And we've got to finally go, yes, God, I won't let you go unless you bless me, but I trust you. Billy Graham had an experience like that early in his ministry. To decide, is the Bible true or not? And he wrestled with God and said, the Bible is true and I stand on it. When you really got a deep faith in God, this has to have been some wrestling with God. Finally come and say, yes, He is true. I don't understand, but He is God and I am not. Let's look at another one. Only Dietrich Bonhoeffer died by the hands of the Nazis in World War II. Only the believer is obedient, and the only obedient believe. If you believe, we're going to see something different. It's going to change you somehow. You remember a few weeks ago when I told a true story, about a man in a subway on a Sunday morning, and the father and his children got on the subway and they were just acting up, and he was all irritated and told the man, can't you keep your kids in line? But then he said, I had a paradigm change when the man said, oh, I'm sorry, their mother just died and I guess none of us know what to do. And he said, completely now, he understood different. So he thought different. He felt different. He acted differently. How can we say we believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and not change our lives? I say to you, people that do that, do not believe. Because when you believe, it changes how you act. All right, another quote. Every man must do two things alone, Martin Luther said. Must do his own believing and his own dying. I can't believe for you. You can't believe for me. Each of us must believe. Blaise Pascal, in his faith, there's enough light for those who want to believe and enough shadow to blind those who don't. I don't know why God could come down and he could come down and appear to every one of us and settle it every time to every person. But he does not choose to do that. He gives us enough light that it makes sense to believe in him. But on some things where you scratch your head and say, wow. And I come down, nobody can prove either one. I will choose to believe. I really believe it makes sense to believe in God. The last one, and that's a verse from the Bible. If Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile. You see why it's not a hope so, wish for, blind faith? It's based on a historical event. John, who wrote these verses that I told you about a minute ago, where he said, Jesus is from the beginning. He was the creator. He is the Messiah. He ate with Jesus. He walked around with Jesus. He talked with Jesus. He saw Jesus die on the cross. How could he believe these things about Jesus? Because he saw his miracles. He heard his words. And he saw him resurrected after 3 days. That's why he can believe these things about Jesus. Our faith is based on historical events, on truth that changed the lives of those people then and people throughout the ages. All right, 5 quick things. I won't take too long. 5 things about faith from this passage. Faith has a basis. Why did that nobleman or that official come to Jesus? Because he'd heard that Jesus had done miracles. He had heard about it. He had a basis, a reason to believe in Jesus. Faith has a basis, something that causes it. Now I want to, biblical faith is not blind faith. We said that. Biblical faith is not just wishing, oh boy, I hope it's so. There's no reason to believe in it, but I just hope it is. I hope there's a Santa Claus and I hope there's a... No. No adults really... Make sure we have no children here who believe in Santa Claus. I don't want to dash it. Adults don't believe in Santa Claus, except for Allison.
Don't believe you don't receive.
But, well, all right, then I'll let Santa Claus give you a gift from me next week.
Okay with that.
But, because that's what some people say, well, it's like believing in Santa Claus. No, it's not like believing in Santa Claus. We have a reason. It's not just wishing. And biblical faith is having a real assurance that's based on evidence. I want us to see that. There are many reasons to believe in God. There are many reasons to believe in Jesus. Can I prove it? No, but it makes sense. There's a lot of evidence and a lot of reasons, young people, old people, for you to believe in God and His Son, Jesus Christ. That's true biblical faith. All right. Faith is needed when something happens we can't control. The official had money. He had influence. He had servants. He was up there in society. But when his son lay sick and was dying, it was out of his control. I don't like it when things are out of my control. I like to have it figured out, planned out, worked out, and know what's going to happen. But a lot of life is not in our control. And you got to learn to deal with it. And this is when we got to say, God, I need you. And this officials, God, you got to help me. My son's dying. I don't know what to do except come to you. Now let me tell you a true story that I love. All right, on the left is Ravi Zacharias when he was a young man. This is actually 50 years ago, 1971, preaching in Vietnam when we were still there, Americans were still there. Hien Pham, I don't know if I say his name right, you can see it written down there, was raised in Vietnam, raised as a Buddhist. As a young man, he did learn English to read and write, so he became an interpreter for the American soldiers and other Americans. An American soldier gave him a Bible, which he started to read. He asked questions about it and became a Christian. He became a follower of Jesus. And so here he's translating for a preacher there as he's preaching in Vietnam in 1971. As you know, a few years after that, South Vietnam fell to the communists. When the communists took over, anybody who worked with the Americans or was a Christian, some of them, many of them they killed. Many more they put in concentration camps, prisons, or what they called re-education camps. And there they taught them constantly, communism is true, there is no God, the Americans were lying to you, and over and over and over this indoctrination and he and them kept praying, God, why don't you release me from this? I believe in you, God, why don't you do something? It seemed like God was doing nothing. Till one night he said, okay, that's it. I'm not going to follow Jesus anymore. Today was the last day I prayed. Tomorrow starts, I'm not praying. I'm not serving God. So that next day, he was assigned to clean the latrine. The latrine is the bathroom. And over there, as they do in Russia these days, in the toilet paper is put in a basket next to the toilet. So he's cleaning the latrines. He looks down, he sees something written, a paper written in English. They don't know English writing to read it, but he does. So he cleans it off, puts it in his pocket, and says, I'll read that tonight. When he got back, he pulled it out, the paper he'd found in the latrine, and it said, Romans chapter 8. It was a page out of the Bible. That one of the Viet Cong and the communists didn't even know what he had. He was using it for toilet paper. And he read Romans chapter 8, where one of the best chapters he could have read. That no matter what happens, and all of a sudden it left me. Romans chapter 8. Somebody give me Romans 8:28. All things work together for good to them who love God. And that no hardships, no persecution, nothing like that will take you from and separate you from the love of God. And that we eventually have victory in Jesus Christ our Lord. And he started crying. And he knew God gave him that piece of paper, just what he needed, on the day he said, I'm not going to pray anymore. And he said, I'm going to pray now, God, every day and serve you. And he asked to be the one who cleaned the latrine all the time. Because the guys were still using, and every day he would get another piece of the Bible and he'd clean it off. And he collected a bunch of the Bible over time. Finally, it came day when they did release him. He had other friends and they wanted to get out of Vietnam. So 54 of them, him and 53 others, found a place they could get a sailing boat to sail to Thailand to escape the communists in Vietnam. They had the day set. The night before, 4 Viet Cong, 4 communists, came to his door, knocked on his door, and said, we saw you down by the water down there. Are you getting ready to try to escape? And he said, no, I was down there for something else. And he lied to them, and they left him. And he said, I felt relieved, but I also felt bad. I lied to them. He said, if they ask again, which they probably wouldn't, it would be the next day he's leaving, I'm going to tell them the truth. The next morning, just a few hours before they were going to get on the boat to escape Vietnam, the 4 Viet Cong soldiers came back. We believe you really are. You are leaving, trying to escape Vietnam, aren't you? And he said, yes, it's true. I do want to escape. Are you going to arrest me? And they said, no, we want to go with you. So 58 of them got on that sailing boat that day. They got out into the middle of the ocean and a tremendous storm came up. And it was just, they thought they was going to sink the boat. And Ken went, God, did you deliver me just to drown us in the ocean? And the 4 Viet Cong said, we have experience in sailing. They took over in sailing and they got there safely. Wow. The Bible just when he needed it. The Viet Cong just when he needed it. He eventually made it to America. He graduated from college in America, University of California. He also got a business degree at Harvard, became a businessman, but stayed a Christian all his life. And just a few months ago in May, spoke at a prayer meeting in Virginia and told this story again and ended it with America is a great country. And I hope America will never forget in God we trust. And I hope we won't either. Amen. What a tremendous story. How it was out of his control He was ready to give up. And God came there and met his needs. Number 3, faith brings action. This is what I was talking about with Dietrich Bonhoeffer's quote. If you believe it, then you do something. It changes things. You act differently. All right, this is from a guy, last name of Davis, I think it was Ken Davis, who wrote a book about speaking to youth, and he told his story of the law of pendulum. When he went to college, he had a speech class, and the speech teacher said, I want you to speak 20 minutes and teach us something and make it memorable. So he took that challenge, and he taught on the law of the pendulum. He got on the blackboard, he made him a little pendulum about 3 feet long, and he told how because of the gravity it makes it keep going, but after a while because of air resistance and friction, it slows down. So the pendulum will never go back as high as it did each time. So he got on the chalkboard and he drew a chalk mark. Here's where he started. He let it go, the weight, and it came back. And when he got here, he made another chalk mark. And he did that and made another and another. And finally it came to a rest. And then there was a bunch of chalk marks to show what he had just taught, that the pendulum never goes back up as high as it did before because of resistance. And he said, do you believe in the law of the pendulum? They said, yes, we do. Even the teacher did. He said, all right, but wait, I got one more thing. There was this, I don't know what kind of classroom he had, but it's maybe like ours, it was open. He had a steel beam up there. He tied 4 parachute cords down and a 250-pound weight on the bottom of it. He asked the teacher, he got a table up, and he put a chair on the table and said, he asked the teacher to sit with his back to the wall. Will you help me? He said, yeah. He took the pendulum, he got somebody to help him, put the 250 pounds and brought it right up to his nose. And he said, now you know what I just taught. That pendulum is not going to hit you when I let it go. He said, it's going to come, and it's going to come about 1 inch short. I want you to just stay there. And he asked the teacher, said, do you believe in the law of the pendulum? Yes. So they let it go, and it went all the way under the other side of the room, and as it came back, the teacher dove out of the chair. And he asked the class, he said, does he believe in the law of the pendulum? They said, no. Because what you believe shows what you do. We say we believe in Jesus Christ. We believe it's God, and it's what is the most important thing in our life. It is our life to be a follower of Jesus Christ, and it changes how we think, how we feel, how we talk, how we act, to go by His ways. If we really believe it, it's going to come out in our actions. It came out in that man's actions. Jesus told him to go, and your son is healed, and what did he do? He went. So our actions show. You can tell me what you believe, but I know you know what you believe, what you do. That shows me what you really believe. Number 4, we should live by faith, not by sight, and not by miracle. What did Jesus say when He first came? You just want signs and wonders. And that's what some people want. They just want another show. They wanted just to see something else. And I guess Jesus was a little fed up with that. That is not what faith is, that we only live by miracles. Miracle is an exceptional thing. God has set up this universe so that it rains, and so that it's sunny, and so that all of the things, the astounding laws of the universe God set up. But He doesn't have to give a miracle a day to prove to us He is God. Faith is by, not just by sight, just what we can see. Faith is now trusting God. We've got to make sense to trust God, but now we trust God even when we don't see. Now, a woman told a story about how she was in an airport one time, and she saw a mother and daughter, an older mother, saying bye to her daughter at the airport, and they cried. And then, as they left, one said, "I wish you enough," and the other one said, "It has been enough, and I wish you enough too." And they departed. Well, the woman said, I was eventually next to her, and I could see she was crying some more, and you're not going to see her again soon? She said, "Well, I've got health issues. That may be the last time I see my daughter. That's why we're crying, because I live thousands of miles from here." She said, "Well, I don't want to be proud, but what does that mean, I wish you enough?" And she said, "Well, it's a saying in our family. My parents said it, we say it, now my kids say it. I wish you enough. And then she said, let me remember how it goes. And she told her how it goes, and it's from a poem, and let me show you to it here. I wish you enough sun to keep your attitude bright. I wish you enough rain to appreciate the sun more. I wish you enough happiness to keep your spirit alive. I wish you enough pain so that the smallest joys in life appear much bigger. I wish you enough gain to satisfy your wanting. I wish you enough loss to appreciate all that you possess. I wish enough hellos to get you through the final goodbye. I wish you enough. Life is not only going to be sun, it's going to be rain. It's not only going to be happy, it's going to be pain. And what this poem is saying, and I believe what God has in plan for us, it's sometimes through the pain, sometimes through the trouble, sometimes through the hurt, that we learn to appreciate what we do have, to enjoy the good things, to love more, to depend on God more. Do I like trouble? No. Do I like pain? No. But there are good things that can come out of it. That's why they said this, I wish you enough. And so it's not just by sight. God is doing something. We don't know what He's doing, which is why I love that song, God Works in Mysterious Ways. A poem by William Cowper 200 years ago. We can't figure out what God's doing, but He's doing something. And we walk by faith in Him. And just the last one, don't dare to ask. The Father, even after Jesus said, you're just looking for something, He's still like, but my son's dying. You got to do something. I'm saying even when we don't figure it out, He wants us to ask. Ask. Dare to ask for what you need. He wants us to depend on Him and to ask Him. And sometimes He'll be able to say yes. And so I ask you, what do you need from God right now? What do you need from God? Because we're going to end this service in a special prayer in just a minute. We'll go ahead, and I say if there's anybody still watching all the way to the end, I hope you'll bow your heads and pray. You need to get right with God. You need some requests in your life about a relationship, some other need. Ask God right now.